Hello and welcome to the 70th Everybody Dice podcast. I am Steve and today I'm joined by...
It's me, Darryl. I'm Darryl. Hello.
Hello. We have no Ian again this week. We're
Hi.
still months out from having all three of us on the same podcast, but hopefully soon. But anyway, it's
Yes.
it's the spoopy month this month, and we don't really
Spooky
have
month.
anything spooky to talk about. So
Stupid.
this is this is kind of this one's kind of a living card game extravaganza. So we've
The
got
LCG episode.
we've got a fair few living card games to talk about on this one. Not the ones. Well, actually, one of them is one of the ones we usually talk about, but we've got a couple that we don't usually talk about on this podcast, which would be kind of cool. Um, but anyway, let's spooky this up a bit. Darryl, what spooky film are you going to be watching over Halloween?
I was gonna try and get to see the new Halloween Kills.
Oh, okay. Heard good things
Now,
as well.
well, I read a review earlier. Very 2 seconds. This is one of my favorite reviews. It is a joke, by the way, obviously. For anyone that's kind of getting upset. Halloween Kills. 3 stars. Disappointing. Michael Myers does not say his iconic groovy or do I make you horny baby lines even once in the entire 2-hour runtime. Now, I've got to admit, I'm a big fan of Mike Myers.
Even
But
post
obviously,
Love Guru.
yeah, I actually quite love Love Guru. It was
Oh
mainly
wow.
because the reason I liked it was because of the fact that you had what's his name? Oh, the singer Justin Timberlake being a French Canadian with an attack guard rooster. I love the fact that it was all phallic related jokes as well. Like his name was like Le Grand Coq something or whatever, Jacques Lecoq, and I was just like, oh come on. It was just it was a bit it was a bit off the whole hype of what do you call it, Austin Powers, but I did actually really like it.
It kind of more came off the back of his success with Shrek, wasn't it?
Uh, for me, anything where he does like a kind of character role, I always assume it's kind of based on something like that. Because obviously he did quite a few in
Well,
uh,
he's had
Austin
Wayne's
Powers.
World. He had Wayne's World, then went on to Austin Powers,
Yeah,
and then did the Shrek films.
yeah, and then the thing is, I like some of his older stuff as well. Like, is it Honey, I Married an Axe Murderer? That's a great film.
I've not seen that. No.
It's really really. I'm pretty sure it's him. It's really good. It's just a bit of an older one. Yeah, it's so I married an axe murderer. Sorry, I'm thinking of Honey, I Shrank the Audience. Yeah, basically, it's hard to explain it without giving it away, but it's quite a good, fun film. He's very young in it as well, uh, and I really like his cameo in Inglourious Bastards,
Oh right, yeah, yeah.
where he's like that proper British sergeant, gin, sir, and you're like, oh. Thank you. I love that he ran. I remember seeing it in a cinema and he just appeared, and you know when you're like, is that Mike Myers? Is that
Yeah,
Mike Myers doing a British sergeant accent in World War Two? You're like, what's going on?
yeah, yeah. It
Very
is a
good.
bit. It is a bit out there when he turns up. You. I don't know. Yeah. He hasn't really done a lot in recent years, though, has he? Do you know
No,
what?
I
Do you know
suppose
what? He seemed to disappear just as Mike Myers in Halloween was starting to come back with like the
I
Rob,
don't
Rob
want to
Zombie films and
say
stuff like
I
that.
don't want to say it's a coincidence,
Are they one
but
in the same? It's not just the
they are
name.
one and the same. See, I've always been under the impression that Shakira and Ricky Martin are the same person because now hear me
Okay.
out because they disappear. One is popular and the other one disappears. One disappears, the other one becomes popular again. And I always assumed that there was this one person doing this incredible Latino, like fit in the niche, but hitting up both markets, so could shake their booty for Shakira, hit the high notes, and then drop off the face of the earth and come back as Ricky Martin.
I had no
You know,
idea
like
Ricky Martin had had another spell since Living La Vida, Living La
oh
Vida
yeah, no,
Loca.
apparently, like I remember hearing a song. I think randomly he came back like. This is totally unboard game related. We've gone
Oh yeah,
back
yeah,
into
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
crazy town.
completely.
But what an intro. Uh, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. It's a bit of a mad one.
Yeah. Right. After all that, shall we get into some board game news?
Do you know what? I'm up for it.
Okay, let's
I'm
have
definitely
some
feeling it.
news.
Have some
Okay,
news.
so first up, Thunderbird Vendetta. Uh, we actually talked
Boop
about
boop.
this on a podcast beforehand. We talked about all the upcoming releases from Restoration Games, and Thunder Road Vendetta
Yeah,
was one
that
of
was
them.
almost like a month ago, wasn't it, or something like that?
I think it might have even been longer than that. But either way, the Thunder Road Vendetta Kickstarter did go up and then was promptly taken back down again. So if you were looking forward to this one coming out on Kickstarter, you may have a little while yet to wait. It only lasted a day, and in that time, it actually almost generated 2/3 of what it needed to raise in order to get made. So things seem to be going okay, but then it's been taken down for a number of reasons. The main one that jumped out to me was the fact that they have no gameplay footage right now with the Kickstarter going up of it. So one thing that they have promised they'll have when the Kickstarter goes up again is they will actually have some playthroughs of the game, basically, because it's very important with a Kickstarter that you kind of at least have something in place where you can show how the game's going to work and stuff like that. But they didn't really have that with this.
No.
It was noted in the explanation of why they've taken it down as well that the who was it that was in charge of the project? It doesn't actually say here, but yeah, the guy in charge of the campaign, unfortunately, it just posted the explanation under the name Restoration Games.
Yeah.
But the person that was in charge of the campaign was advised by his team to postpone the Kickstarter and do it at a later date. He'd given them a firm no, and then realised that there were still problems with this campaign and decided to take it down. This probably would have, well, this more than definitely would have reached its funding goal, but I think there were a couple of warning flags where people were starting to pull away from the project or saying they weren't going to back it because of certain things. For a start, they haven't actually got the model cars made yet as well. So one of the things that they said they wanted to do was finalise the design of the vehicles so that they could have some of them to be able to show as well. So it just sounds as if everything had already been decided on how this was going to run and play. So they thought, let's put it live, and then realised the problem was they didn't have enough to show for it. That's kind of the takeaway that I'm getting from it here.
Yeah.
I think there was
It's a
another
shame.
thing with Fireball Island as well. There was kind of like a big deluxe version of the game where they didn't get the box of the game as such. They got lots of things separately, and it looked like this was going the same way as well. Like all the cool art covers of the box and stuff like that, I think you wouldn't get. You kind of just got a plain color kind of box if you got the maximum deluxe version. But they're changing that because I think it was one of the criticisms that Fireball Island got. Just in case you didn't know, Fireball Island was one of their previous Kickstarters. But yeah, that seems to be another thing that they're doing. They're trying to get a finalized design, like artwork design, of the deluxe version. When for people that are going to back that, I suppose.
It's a shame because the thing is, they showed like a few like, and again, it was like digital video clips, like GIFs almost. And I know me and Steve were talking about it because he was saying about how like it's quite pricey for the Chrome Maximum Chrome edition,
Mm.
where you get everything, but it did look like you could still buy everything separately. You weren't gaining something for it; it was just a sort of bundled price. However, there was the concept that kind of blew my mind was it was called Big Rig, and basically it was like a 3-piece oil tanker rig, And in my mind, it just screams Mad Max, like driving it, especially the newer one, just driving this massive rig through cars, and apparently you just slamming into the side of them. And I think, I honestly, I will get this game because I have been sort of, I know we quite, don't say we're quite fond of our car and race related games. We would sort of have quite a few, don't we? And especially, I know we've all kind of been dabbling with the idea of like a post-apocalyptic style one. We played, what's the one with like the worms?
Oh,
Oh
Terror
God, what's it called?
Below.
Yeah, that's a great concept. Like it's kind of like you sort of hunting stuff and trying to escape with the eggs and stuff. I like that. This just looks like it's more of a kind of carnage-based race game to get to the finish point, do things in between like missions. I think it looks good, but I guess if it's not right, it's not right. At least I'd rather it didn't flop and everyone who paid for it was just like, oh, this is not the best game, and sort of let, because most of the stuff they brought out has been very strong.
Hmm.
You don't want it to be kind of a sort of a notch in that kind of hit list, if you will.
I mean,
But
just to put a bit more positivity on this as well, if you actually go into the comment section on there, the people that backed the game before, a lot of them seem to be understanding and quite happy.
yeah, it's not many negative ones, is there?
Yeah, sure, there's one or two negative ones on there. You're always going to get something like that. But generally, it seems like people are quite happy because it, to be honest, from the sound of this, they weren't going to be getting their copy any quicker because of this. Like, releasing it earlier wasn't going to make it appear earlier than if they were to have put this back a couple of months, because there's still a couple of things that they have to put together, you see, that they can't actually show off just yet. So generally, I don't think this is overly tragic. I don't think anyone's really been hurt by this. I don't think either. I think lessons
No,
have been
because
learned, and
if
yeah,
it gets cancelled, your money doesn't even get claimed till the end anyway. So you're not losing out the money you put in. If it was a cancelled one later on down the line, like obviously was it the Evil Dead one that got cancelled? I think we
that's
did a
the
thing on that
infamous
before.
one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, which is a shame. But I mean, yeah, it it looks my kind of thing. I definitely would have loved playing it. It's just a shame it's not really um, gonna go ahead. But like I say, I mean, next year looking forward to playing. So I'm not bothered with that.
yeah. Okay, shall we move on to our other news story for this
Hit me up
podcast?
there.
We're sticking with Kickstarter as well, and one that's just launched, Senjutsu Battle for Japan. Um, this is the kind of thing. Basically, I wanted to talk about this because this looks very much up mine and Darryl's alley.
It tickles our fancy, doesn't it?
It does. Like, we're both quite interested in the kind of like samurai kind of culture, I suppose. Like, if you're looking at like a certain period from Japanese times, you know, where you've got like the Tokugawa shogunate and the back end of like the, oh god, what was his name? Oh god, Nobunaga Oda and all that. Like, it's a really famous like period in Japan where samurai were kind of dying out and stuff like that. You know, like there was a certain Western influence by that point coming into Japan. That's all a real like it's a real interesting period of history for me. I quite like learning about stuff like that. There aren't a huge amount of games that really focus on these kind of things either. I know one game I am looking at that I would quite like to get is a game called Sekigahara, but that's something completely different to what we've got here. Let's talk about this before I go off on a tangent. Um, yeah, so Senjutsu, what is it? You take the role of a samurai. You get to choose between, I think it was a student, a warrior, a ronin, and a master. I think if you what are the four characters that are included in this box set, and the idea is it's kind of a dueling game. So one samurai faces off against another, and you have a bit of a fight. You can play with it up to four players, which is kind of where I think this looks kind of interesting. Essentially because of the way this plays, very much reminds me of another game. So the idea is that you have your little figurine on the board, and you have your kind of hexagonal grid-based kind of board, so spaces to move to and stuff like that via those paths. And then you have a deck that you can customize. You can make your own deck, which will be filled with a bunch of moves you can make. So they'll dictate how you're going to block, how you're going to move, how you're going to attack your opponent. So the idea is you'll have a hand of cards out of your deck, and each player will choose one card that they'll put face down. The cards are then flipped over, and stuff happens. It's first of all dictated by a speed value. So your speed value, whoever's the faster out of the two gets to go first, and then it has a number of actions on it that your character will take then. So it might be they move to a spot and then attack someone. This all very much reminds me of BattleCon, which I know me and you have played at some point, right, Darryl?
Yes, I actually quite enjoyed that. We were going to go around to playing a few more, but I think we just kind of got a bit. I remember I always wanted you to teach me it, and you did, and it was really enjoyable. And once you started getting into it, but again, it was one of those things where I needed more.
Yeah,
we'll have to go back to that at some point.
It would be very cool to look at that again because it's a game I really enjoy. But this very much reminds me of that. Where it differs is in that you can have up to 4 people playing. So, whereas BattleCon took place on pretty much 2D board because BattleCon tried to replicate a 2D fighting game, basically. So you just had a straight line and you would move up and down the line attacking one another, basically. Again, doing things like moving, blocking, doing different kinds of attacks. Senjutsu also has this really interesting system called the Kamea tree. And what this looks like is you're going to choose... You've kind of got a card which has different modes that you can kind of be in. Is probably going to be the best way that I'd put it. And depending what mode you put yourself into, it will affect how your card works. So you can actually then adapt how your card's going to play based on what you've got on there, which is kind of cool as well. It just adds a bit more depth to it as well. It makes it a little bit more customizable on the fly as well, which is kind of cool. Generally, though, this really looks up my street. I'm going to be posting the Kickstarter down the bottom as well.
It literally will not let me take my money. It just keeps reloading. It's so annoying. Yes, that card. I mean, sorry, I haven't backed it.
But I mean, this is funded like over 10 times over already. It's absolutely smashed its funding goal already. It's surprisingly affordable as well.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm. So I'm not gonna lie, I've gone for the deluxe edition purely based on the fact that it's got a neon preen mat and metal rings, which I think would be a really nice option. Yeah. There's an extra ninja figure for early bidders, which is you can buy separately, whatever. But I think aesthetically it's nice. I think it's quite a small game as well. It looks kind of like it kind of reminds me. It sounds really stupid of like the concept of Unmatched in a way that you're kind of got your card deck, you've got characters, you can get around with doing stuff. Don't freeze now.
Oh man, it's happened early today, man.
I know. All right, well, yeah, I'm just gonna sit like this position for a while apparently. Yeah. So it can be a case of those kind of like mini battle games I really enjoy. They're quite nice to play. In fact, it's got like a single player game. And the miniatures look really good. I don't know if I'll go to paint them. I feel like I couldn't do it justice.
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean. But yeah, I'm very tempted to back this as well, despite the fact that you're also backing it.
Well, the thing is, I didn't back for the 2 other things, but I feel like I will debate on those because the extra figures do look really cool.
Yeah,
but
they do.
They're nearly the same price as the game for the 2 of them, so it's sort of like yeah.
Before we close out this, because it is something that looks very interesting to me. I wanted to.
Are you gonna say what I think you're gonna say? I'll let you speak, and if it isn't the thing, I'll carry on.
Okay, so there's actually going to be 2 more games planned in this series.
There we go.
So,
it's fine. You carry on.
Battle for Japan is a series of games. The next one that they're expecting to launch in 2022, called Daimyo, is going to be a 4X game, which I think sounds quite cool. So, in other words, you're probably going to have a big map with a map of Japan, and you're going to get to conquer it, which really is the kind of thing that I would kind of like to have, if because I'm bad at those games. I'm really
Yeah,
bad
of
at
course, yeah.
4X games.
But having a
But
theme that you like might be a push to kind of get you there.
oh god, yeah. And the third game that is currently slated for 2023 is a game called Yugen, which
See,
is
that's
going to
where I'm
be,
thinking is my. That's got my money. That one.
so it's a cooperative narrative based miniatures dungeon crawler is the way they put it. So it's going to, like, I straight away I've got something like Gloomhaven in mind for that.
Yeah.
That's what that sounds like. I'm worried for that one. Not over the quality of it, but I think that could be a real expensive one. Um,
Mm.
Simply thinking that Gloomhaven is a miniatures game, but it's very limited with its miniatures. The only miniatures are the characters you're playing as. Everything else is cardboard standees. If they decide to go all in with miniatures with this, like they seem to be suggesting, this could be hugely expensive.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
we'll see. It's nowhere near here yet, so I could be very wrong about that, and it could turn out to be absolutely fine. Um, but we'll wait and see, because when, like, we saw this Senjutsu game uh, a few weeks before the Kickstarter launched, and I very explicitly said to Darryl that if this is three figures, then I won't be buying it.
Yeah,
And
we went on the high end route, didn't we? We assumed it'd
yeah,
be at least. I mean, I thought potentially anywhere between 80 to 100.
mm,
Um, I'm pleasantly surprised.
yeah, pleasantly surprised with the price. Like it's
Mm.
very affordable. So
Yeah, I mean, you think a £35 Kickstarter game is very unheard of
yeah,
these
especially
days.
one with miniatures in as well.
Yeah, of
Like
course, yeah.
yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. But anyway, that is all the news we have for today, which means it's time to move on to what we've been playing.
The LCG Power Hour.
Right then. So,
It's a sad thing you can't see my camera right now
yeah, like you could
because you'd see
be
my setup.
your setup.
Well, I was going to go into the TCG Power Hour by showcasing a Marvel Champions game that I have set up.
Well,
Uh,
now that you've said that,
yes.
we are actually kicking off with Marvel
Oh,
Champions.
boom!
Actually, so yeah, it's good you mentioned that.
Okay.
So yeah, Rise of the Red Skull you've been playing, I believe.
Yeah, so I am currently backlogged with the campaigns. I never really got around to finishing Rise of the Red Skull. So I thought, oh, do you know what? I'll go on to do that. I'll finish it off, and then I'll move on to the Guardians of the Galaxy and eventually the Thanos set, okay? And then potentially the Spider-Man one whenever that comes out. So, what I would say is I am loving the subtle rule changes that each scenario provides, okay? So, although the deck is just a Steve Rogers Captain America deck, which is no different from the standard one, it is now infused with campaign-related cards, which have just made him a bit more of uh, a powerhouse, just potentially a little bit more dangerous. So basically, there's a couple of the last two scenarios I played is a Taskmaster one. The concept of Taskmaster is he has five what they got five neutral heroes that aren't part of the deck but they're from the campaign, and basically once you rescue them they're yours to keep. So they are more or less all heroes for hire, and one of the most interesting things about them is they are actually zero cost. So allies tend to sort of start anywhere between 2 and go up to sort of 4 or potentially 5, some are 6, depending on their abilities. However, having a zero cost ally is perfect because if you think you're going to have a hard round, they're bullet sponges. They basically can soak up the damage, leaving you to do the thing. The thing I like about it is a lot of them have really interesting bonus effects that you can trigger by spending stuff because they're mercenaries, basically. So if you, for instance, Electra, after you play Electra from your hand, spend a like a punching resource, which I think is like a might or aggression one, and it will deal 3 damage to an enemy. So they've got these kind of bonus abilities to throw down, which when you think about it, you're not really paying any cost to put them down. And Captain America is quite a cool deck because he is one of the few sort of sets that can actually have more allies than other people. He needs the upgrade, but once he's got the upgrade, he can kind of throw that out. He also has abilities like you can stick the title Avengers under people, which then triggers Avengers Assemble cards. So I can basically set the field up to have all my Avenger characters reactivate and do some serious damage. I've got a basic attack upgrade now, which basically gave me an extra health and extra damage. So Captain America's pumping out quite a bit. I've got a super weapon, which I chose as the laser cannon, and essentially it's a discardable one, so it will be removed from the game, but it'll let me do 5 damage to the villain and each character other minion that I'm engaged to. So that is my basically. I know I've got to fight the Red Skull. That is my last ditch attempt, doomsday weapon, if you will. That if I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed, I'm going to do all that damage. Captain America has a great one where you can pay cards to fight reactivate. So I'm just going to constantly do this all day is his trigger. And then eventually use the shield thing to just throw down like 6 damage, 10 damage, just try and get as much as possible, try and wipe the deck. However, I came against a roadblock. I was playing against Zola, which is the 4th scenario, the one right before the Red Skull, and he is he's difficult. I'm not gonna lie. He's got some nasty scenario cards. So the issue I've been finding with him is he has a lot of minions that are really weirdly mutated in his deck. So a lot of his cards were bringing those mutants to the deck and then adding tech upgrades to them to the point where they've become anywhere from being a standard 3 health enemy to a 12 health enemy. So much like when we were playing Aeon's End?
Aeon's End, yeah.
Yeah, where we suddenly started getting minions that were actually proving more difficult than we first thought. This is what's coming up with this one. For every threat you put on the scenario tracker, he puts a token down for research, I think it is. Once he gets free research, which is not hard, he brings out another minion. So before you know it, you're getting swamped by minions. Some of them have guard, which means you can't attack him straight away. You have to get rid of them. And then some of them gain. So like the upgrades I've been getting on them is putting them anywhere between having an extra 2 health and 2 an extra 4 health, 2 threat, 2 attack, which is. I made the mistake on one of my final rounds of setting him up for a full. Unfortunately, I had to health and recover. In doing so, he schemed. Bearing in mind the limit is 8 on this one card. He schemed for 12.
Yeah.
There was no way to deny it. He had to scheme for 12 because I can't stop that. I had no cards in my hand to do it. So he basically, in one turn, completed his end game. So it's very... You can't almost let him scheme. You have to always just let him attack you and hope that you can recover in between rounds because it's so important that he doesn't get all the minions out there that are gaining the bonuses that are buffing him. And there's also experimental weapons that are in the deck from previous missions which have been included. So he's eventually getting upgrades. And this is what happened with Taskmaster. I think I sent a copy to Steve. I was a bit cheeky and tried rescuing as many allies as possible, knowing that I needed them as much as possible.
Okay, we had some technical difficulties, but we're back, and we have Darryl back.
Back for visuals.
You were talking about bleeding Taskmaster for his extra allies, and how hard
Yes.
Zola was.
Basically, I decided that I would be cheeky and try and get as many allies as possible because, like I say, Captain America works with allies better than most people because he's on leadership at the moment. However, I knew full well that Taskmaster was going to be a weapons master, and he has a set called Weapons Master in it. which also added with all of the upgrades that I'd lost in other previous missions, if you will. So it led to, I think I sent a photo to Steve where I had him. He was 1 health. I could have killed him at any point, but I wanted to hold him until I had the cards. However, it got to a point where he got the cards I was dreading. He buffed up. He had like 3 different weapons upgrades, which put him at like, oh, I don't know, the next move he would have killed me, and I just went, oh, I'm gonna have to kill him. So I just basically stopped him, terminated him, and got rid of him. And then what the other thing was, I had to discard a card, which was the last one of his scenario cards that, which had the allies prisoned. So I couldn't have done the last one anyway. So basically, I lost out on Shang-Chi, and I'm bitter to this day.
So one thing I did want to ask you about this was, it kind of sounds like, do you actually have to have one person play as Captain America then, or was it just a thematic choice that you made?
I went for theme. I
Okay.
felt like the whole Hydra thing. I kind of thought like Captain America would be the no. So the concept of this campaign is very much similar to the Arkham Horror, for instance. You just have the stories set out for you. They're not the same kind of level as Arkham Horror, but they're still nice, and I would say they're more accessible for children and people. They kind of got comic book. What's this gonna work? They have like comic book stories.
That's not working. You're gonna have to get that virtual
Uh,
background out, get that to work.
Comic backgrounds. That's all you're getting. A little
Okay,
teaser.
that's fair enough.
I don't want spoilers. You're getting the comic backgrounds, which kind of they're like the story fluff, if you will. It's done very simply, and then you're just kind of given a scenario, a commentary on it, what's happening, and then what you need to set up. Again, it's a lot easier than Arkham Horror. It's pretty much just usually the standard set and some other little bits, probably from the main game, but mainly the most of it's inside these new ones. And then you just pick a hero. You pick whoever you want. If you wanted to, you could play as the Incredible Hulk, but I think the Incredible Hulk has no thwart capabilities whatsoever. I think he has cards that let him do it, but him as a basic hero only has a 0 cost.
Yeah.
So he is just, well, which makes sense thematically. He's punching. I think probably it's more enjoyable with 2 to 3 people. The stakes obviously raise a little bit with that, but it does mean one of you could focus on minion control, one of you could focus on damage, one of you could focus on buffs, whatever, you know. So there is that. But I just chose Captain America because it just, like I say, it just made sense. You do get 2 pre-made heroes in each one. So there is Spider-Woman and Hawkeye.
Okay.
I've heard they're really good decks. I've just never really got around to. I've not even opened them actually. It's the same with the Guardians of the Galaxy. You get Rocket and Groot and Thanos. The one I'm most interested about in Thanos is you get. I cannot remember the first one, but you get Adam Warlock.
Okay, yeah.
And one of the things that kind of has been interesting about Adam Warlock and Spider-Woman is they were the first kind of 2 characters that I know of anyway that could take dual cards. So Spider-Woman could have so there's like leadership, protection, aggression. Basically, it's themed around the characters, but the idea is you could kind of adapt it and change it how you will. So you could make someone a different character, like Justice, for instance, and then make them a purely aggressive deck so that it works better for them. Or it just makes it more, kind of thematic for you. However, they are one of the ones that actually have like dual card sets, so they can actually take from both. So I quite like that. I think Adam Warlock can take from like maybe all of them, or something like that. He can use a hell of a lot. So with his deck, you could create this monstrous deck of like abilities and stuff. But yeah, I'm looking forward to. Like I said, I'm going to another go at this one. I want to get rid of Zola. He currently has my only it's weird. He has my only character based hero currently in his possession, so I have to win that back, otherwise that gets taken from the game.
Okay, I see.
So yeah, I lose out on my character specific ally, which is
so
kind of...
you're kind of building your own squad of Avengers kind of thing throughout, using those Avengers tags you were talking about, but you can also lose them over the course of the game as well.
So
out of your team.
Captain America has the Avengers, and he has abilities to
okay.
put on things, but he also has the characteristics of, I think it's like some other characters that aren't Avengers, but because of these little card upgrades, you can put them on them. And his whole ability is Avengers Assemble, and you can basically make them all do more turns than once, and they can ready all up, or they can come back. So his whole thing is like leadership, which for him makes sense. The character fits the profile. However, throughout the game, you're winning allies, you're winning tech, you're winning upgrades per sort of scenario. So he's now got a lot more stuff than he started off with. Like he started off on a 60 card deck or whatever it was, and now he's obviously got about another 10 cards in there. Allies that are free to use, have special abilities. He's got a new upgrade. He's got stuff that is set up cards now, so they basically start out of the deck and I can use them whenever.
Okay.
You know, I've got another one. If I beat this one, I get to upgrade. Yeah, if I get rid of the prison guard and win back my hero, my ally, I get to upgrade the one I've already got, which puts me at a great advantage for the next fight because I've got extra health. And also I think it has a tappable ability, so I can twist it, exhaust it, and then I can use an ability on there like do more damage or search for more cards, which is never a bad thing.
Anyway, before
Yes.
we pack up and move on to the next one, I did just want to ask you one last thing. This is the first deluxe expansion for Marvel Champions, yes?
Yes, so this was the first one of the set. Like I say, it's
How
one of three so far.
then? The question I want to ask is, at the moment, how essential is this set?
Do you know what? It's funny because I read an article earlier where people were saying how essential is any of the Arkham Horror extra stuff compared to the original concept, right? And I would say these two kind of differ in this like scenario. Arkham Horror, the core standard set, is story based.
Hmm.
So it is 100% you're playing three scenarios if you want to over and over again. However, I seem to always come out with the same outcomes, more or less. And I know a lot of people have said it's not the best way to get into Arkham Horror.
Sure.
However, I would say the core set of this, if you look past the fact that you've only got three villains in it, and it's not really story based as such, it's more about just one-on-one showdowns or 1v4 max kind of thing. You kind of are left to your own to kind of make up why. They have the scenario cards which go to some extent. It does feel like there's a story based around the Rhino is destroying the city, which is kind of something to do with Claw, and Claw is sort of being used by Ultron. There's a kind of like weird scenario where they all kind of seem to blend in, but no actual scenario. However, I would say if you have the standard core set, which you do need to be able to play these campaigns, I would say I think it's essential to get a campaign if you're looking for a bit more of a story-based narrative that changes your deck and gives you new scenarios. Like, don't get me wrong, some of the what are we talking, like some of the side enemy decks they brought out, so like the Green Goblin, the Wrecking Crew, Kang the Conqueror, they also have interesting new mechanics they've added purely based on the.
And he's frozen out again. Okay, take 3, and we are shutting Darryl, at least his camera, down for good.
Yeah, I think it's going to go to the scrap heap in the sky.
So, really, like you say, just to really summarize this, the various campaign sets are kind of essential to Marvel Champions, so it's well worth a look if
Yes.
you own the core set, basically.
Yeah, like I say, they're. I can never say something's essential because it always feels like that's a bit of a push because it's quite expensive. But if you want more of a narrative experience, this is your thing. If you just want to keep battling the same three villains or 4 or 5 one-on-one, then stick with the core set and just add like campaign scenario packs over and over again or stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Then let's move away from Marvel Champions, and we're actually very briefly going to move away from living card games because we talked about this on the last podcast, but
Oh, the palate
Zilch.
cleanser.
We had a real quick game of this, so I kind of got the chance to play this as well. We won't go into too much about how it plays because we explained it all on the last podcast. But we had a couple of things like we played this, and I think we were talking. There's a couple of ways you could probably improve this game because from playing this, I kind of was feeling like you could come up. So the idea is like when you have your 8 letters out, and you've got your choice of making a word. It's the first person to make a word out of it. So why wouldn't you just go for the minimum 4-letter word each time and skip through it unless you saw an immediate 5, 6, or 7 or 8 letter word if you're particularly lucky. Like it just felt like every time I would, if I saw a 4-letter word, I would just say it immediately and not give
Yeah, of course.
not give you a chance to say anything because it felt like that was the way to do it. There were a couple of occasions where I hesitated and I saw a 4-letter word and I thought, I want to see if I'm pretty sure there's going to be a 5 or 6 letter word in here. And eventually you would end up like, those were the ones where I tended to lose out on making a word from that. So it really felt like unless you see something immediately, there's no point in going for longer words because you can just jump in, say, yep, 4-letter word, done, kind of thing. So we were talking about how perhaps boosting it to, like, the game suggests you can play with 10 cards rather than 8 cards out and you have a 5-letter
Yes.
word you have to find, which I think that sounds better, I think, because
Yeah.
it's then enough to make everyone stop and think for a bit because I definitely was finding 4-letter words are very noticeable very, very quickly. Whereas it does take a little bit longer sometimes to make, say, a 5-letter word or something like that. So it just adds that extra layer of challenge and makes people think a bit more. I don't know what you had similar feelings, didn't you?
Yeah, because I know that they were saying the whole point of it is it's kind of be played between like families and children and adults and stuff like that. So the way that you kind of get around that is the kids only have to make smaller words. So 4-letter words, for instance, while the adults have to make 5 letters and 6-letter words. So it kind of is nice. I mean, in the instructions itself, it does have the extreme hard and master modes or whatever you want to call them. So it does make sense. I mean, having played it a couple of times now, I feel like I would probably go to definitely like, yeah, let's say like a 10-letter word and start trying to find these longer words because it just gives you a bit more like I say, breathing room to find them rather than just going 4 arse. Do you know what I mean? Just like stuff like, you know, it's going to be kind of really quick to come to get out with. It doesn't always make it like that because some of the letters we did have like were just, it was like, was it all A's at one point? We had like 4 A's.
Yeah, we did have that at one
So it
point.
was, oh god, yeah.
But yeah, like I don't want to spend too long on Zilch because, like I said, we talked about it before. But I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good, like you say, a palate cleanser.
Yeah,
Real
I love it
fun,
myself.
just 5-minute game that you can just whack out, have a quick go on, and put away again and move on to the next game. You know. So yeah, I mean, I'd still be happy to recommend this one because I still had fun. I just feel
Yeah,
like it helps to play it on a bit of a harder difficulty setting rather than the default 8 cards, 4-letter word kind of
yeah.
standard way of playing it. I suppose I think that is a little too simplified and a bit too easy because at that point, do you know what, I was talking about this the other day actually with my mum and dad actually. They were watching House of Games
Okay,
on BBC Two. BBC Two, I think it's on BBC Two, whatever channel they
something
watch
like
it
that.
on.
Yeah, yeah,
But I kind of was noticing that it's less about who knows stuff in that and more about who's fastest on the buzzer. Because there were multiple times where you could see 3 people would all know the answer and go for it at once, kind of thing. But it was always that one person that was quicker on the buzzer that was getting all of them. So it's a, a knowledge game where it seems like that dexterity of being able to press a button quickly is what decides it. And I think that's
yeah.
kind of crappy. And I think that was a little bit the same with Zilch as well, with 4-letter words especially. I think you have that. You're more likely to have a brain fart with a 5-letter word than a 4-letter one, which I
Yeah, of
think
course.
are quite widely recognisable. Literally the only the interesting parts were, like you said, when you had 3 A's on the board and stuff like that, and then you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
that
yeah.
hesitation of, is there a 4-letter word here? Because you say zilch if there's no word there, and if someone can prove there is a word there, then you're wrong,
Sweet.
and that
Yeah.
person takes all 8 cards. So that was where the game got really interesting. So definitely, I feel like it needed difficulty ramp up. Was there anything else you wanted to say before we move on?
No, I think it just kind of goes with like the things we sort of said before, that it is quite just an easy game just to pick up, and I feel like it's a nice little one, just like you say, just to throw in between games, or like at Christmas with family. So I still stick by that. I think I just want to try the harder modes of it, try and get really into it. But
Okay. Now moving on. I have been waiting to talk about this game since this podcast began. Netrunner. Um,
boo.
So I'm going to start off with an apology because I realise right now that we are going to be talking about a game that is out of print, and you actually have to spend quite a lot of money in order to just get off the ground floor with it now. Just to buy the core box set alone, you're looking at spending, a good £60 or something like that just to get the core set, and then you have a myriad of expansions out there. I've only got a minimal amount of expansions for Netrunner, but it is one of my absolute favourite games of all time. And I finally got Darryl to play it. Um, so, to summarise this, it's an asymmetrical living card game. One player takes the role of a corporation who are trying to advance agendas but set up firewalls, which are called ICE in this game, whilst also doing things like playing operations and things like that, just to kind of give them a boost whilst they're trying to do that. The corporation cards as well are very much kept secret, so they play all their cards face down, which is different to the runner, who is trying to basically establish their own kind of deck, their own hard, not card deck, but technological deck, shall we say. So they're trying to build icebreakers, which are going to break through the various firewalls. They're trying to give themselves systems where they can boost the powers of all of their icebreakers, because usually just to approach a piece of ice they have to reach a certain strength beforehand, so you may need a way of doing that. And then they have various other tricks they can play as well. They can upgrade their console and stuff like that, because they only have a limited number of icebreakers they can put out because they've got hardware constraints. So there's stuff to think about there. The main nitty gritty of the game really comes when the runner feels like they've built up enough technology to be able to run on a server. The servers being the corporation's deck that they haven't drawn cards from yet. It could be from their hand, which is represented by their HQ, and you can make a run on their discard pile, but then also they could be putting cards face down that aren't ice cards, and when they do that, that's establishing a server. So yeah, they'll choose when they want to make a run and stuff. You've got a number of clicks as well. The corporation actually gets less turns than the runner. The runner gets 4 turns per round, whereas the corporation only gets 3. But the corporation does have a forced card draw at the beginning of their round, because if their deck runs out and they're forced to draw a card, the corporation loses. Same with the runner. If their life is basically tracked by how many cards they have in their hand. So the more cards that they play in order to make successful runs, they're playing with their life at the same time. So you kind of have to be careful when you run, because if at the end of your turn you're left with no cards in your hand as the runner, the corporation can just snipe you for 1 damage and end the game right there and then. But generally, the main way people win the game is by the corporation forwarding their agendas, and the runners taking a chance and running on a server which has an agenda currently in it. that's trying to be advanced. So I love this game simply because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors involved in it. Like, building your deck is only the first part. There's a large part of the game that becomes this kind of deduction game almost,
Ugh.
which is incredible for a deck building game. So uh, I've just established a server and put a card down face down. Is that an agenda? I've put no ice on it at all, or is it an obvious trap? Chances are you're going to think it's a trap, because I'd be stupid to leave a server there without ice on it for them to be able to make a run on and not even have to break through a firewall in order to get there, or break through the ice. But then am I double bluffing it? Am I doing that because I know you won't make a run on it because you're so convinced it's a trap? So I start advancing agendas on it all of a sudden. There's that element to this game as well. Like, the corporation is essentially playing mind games with their opponent throughout the entirety of this thing. So in this game, I played as the corporation, you played as the runner.
Yes, the runner.
You were a shaper. I kind of gave you a pre-constructed, like a pre-ordered deck, because I wanted you to have certain cards in your hand to be able to play this. So you had the Crypsis Icebreaker pretty much from the beginning, which is an expensive icebreaker, but it can break through pretty much any piece of ice that gets put down, because the ice have various types, and you have to have the right kind of icebreaker to... Well, you can approach a piece of ice that's of a different type with the same strength, but you then have to... Each piece of ice then has a number of subroutines on them. And if you don't break those subroutines, you're going to be taking all of those. So usually you can only break the subroutines at the same type of ice as it is on the icebreaker. So in other words, you might have a code gate icebreaker, so you can break through any piece of ice. You can usually break the subroutines on a piece of ice that has the type code gate, for example. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that, I don't know, like, how did you find it? I think is probably because I mean, I already know I love this game. How did you find your first experience of it?
I really liked it. Yeah, it's a difficult one because, like you say, it is a not say a dead game, but in terms of sort of getting hold of it as a standard game, it's a shame because it is difficult to find. However, I want to play more of it. I like the aspects of it. The thing I found frustrating, and we know where this is going, is I could not read you.
Yeah.
Like, there was no way. I know Steve was saying, like, there was a couple of times where he bluffed hard and I'd been caught by traps.
Yep.
And the other thing was, you started doing things where you were like putting two down and then kind of leveling them up, advancing them even. And I was like, I don't know if he's playing the field and they're both. I mean, because they could have both been. And I had to make my chance and take one. And then I was like, well, he's put one behind a really hard, like, firewall. And I was like, this definitely feels like a bluff, because I'm going to try and waste all my time on that and then only to find a trap at the end, which I think you did on one of them. And then there was another one where you just left it wide open. I was like, this can't be a thing. He's doing this to invite me in to get trapped. And it turns out it wasn't. And you just like, I'm like, yeah, it's annoying because it's like, I don't, it's hard to read, and it got frustrating because I was really put in that corner at the end when you leveled up that one row of like stuff, and I had enough to get through most of it, just not all of it. And that was my last ditch attempt to try and stop you, and you played it perfectly because you put it on the heaviest one and just proper steamrolled through it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems you have as the corporation is usually having money. The idea is that you set down all of your ice and stuff like that, and you get to play that without paying a cost for it. But as soon as the runner makes a run on somewhere, You look at that ice and you say, right, I'm going to pay to basically initiate it now. They call it resing it. And you
Yeah.
flip it over, and then they have to deal with that ice. And then you don't pay the cost again for that unless it specifically says so. So that piece of ice will then stay there active, and they'll have to run through it each time. But now they know what it is. We talked about this as well. It's a game that's as much about fishing for information as it
Yeah, yeah.
is about necessarily getting the agendas, or it might be about forcing, like you. There was one where I could have. I think I said I could have killed you
Could
at
have
this
wiped me in
point,
one, yeah.
and it was one where you made a run on a server, and I wanted you to back off of there for the time being, so I rezzed the ice for it. You didn't
Mm.
back off. You still ran through it and went into the car because you have the option of jacking out, as they would say,
Yeah,
and not
yeah.
approaching the card after you've run through a piece of ice. Or once you've run through one piece of ice, you'll then be encountered by a second piece of ice, and you might go, "Yeah, I don't want any piece of that," and you back away from it, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
But you ended up by simply making a run on there. You made me spend money, which then
Yeah.
didn't allow me to hit you with the damage for the trap that I'd laid. So, I mean, it was one of those occasions where I was banking on you not running on that particular turn. I thought you'd leave it one more turn, at which point I know that I'd be able to both res the ice and hit you with that at the same time. So yeah, it's interesting, like the different head games you can play with one another with it, because like I say,
Yeah.
you it's a perfectly valid play in Netrunner for you to make a run on a server just to diminish my funds. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because you know that gaining money as the corporation is not necessarily all that easy. You've got less clicks, so if you look at it purely that way, a runner can gain 4 credits in a turn, whereas without special card ability, should I say, whereas the corporation will only be getting 3 per turn. So that's a fairly sizable difference there, you know.
Yeah.
But you're going to develop lots of different tricks. You'll be able to play like I'm really looking forward to coming back to this and having you play as the corporation next time.
Corp, yeah.
Yeah, because we played a Shaper versus the Jinteki Corporation. It's what they suggest you play to begin with, and like I said, I did I made sure that you had all the tools to be able to succeed with your starting hand, and it was pushed very close. Like I think the score at the end was like 7 points to 4 or something like that. So you got a few agendas in there. You had a few successful runs where you managed to get agendas off of me. So
Yeah.
it was by no means a whitewash at all. But Jinteki, the reason why they suggest you use those two to begin with is because the Jinteki Corporation tends to teach the runner a few valuable lessons, which is don't just prepare your run, prepare for what happens after the run as well. So you don't want to run on your last turn, because the Jinteki Corporation, if you were left with no cards at the end of your run, the Jinteki Corporation has loads of cards in their hand that can just deal damage. So it kind of teaches them, yeah, you may want to think about when you do your runs. Maybe spend an entire turn preparing your run and then run immediately on your next turn. Like, first click, do that. And then if things go wrong, you've still got 3 more clicks to be able to put yourself back into a situation where things aren't going to be so bad for you, you know? And like I say, it's at its worst against the Jinteki Corp, but it is generally a good practice to have as a runner anyway.
Yeah.
But also, I wanted you to play as the runner first of all, because it's very hard to teach this game as the runner, explaining to the corporation what they have to do, whereas with the corporation, they can explain everything as you're playing, and then when you switch roles the next time, hopefully the person that played the runner before will have a fairly good idea with what they're doing with the corporation beforehand, and generally any questions that the person would then have playing as the corporation, they've probably got kind of a basis on how the
Yeah.
cards work. So if they want to ask questions next time, they'll kind of know how to ask the questions without giving too much away, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
because you'll have been able to see how I played the corporation and then play it that way next time, you know. But yeah, like, I can't really sum this up, really, because I've got a massive bias towards loving this game these days. How would you feel about it if someone said, "Hey, my friend's got a Netrunner set. Should I learn it and have a few games with them?" How would you kind of like approach that person asking you that?
I would say yes. I think the only it's an annoying one because, like I say again, it brings you back to that whole it's not easily accessible. If your friend's got it, that's really good. But I would feel a little bit disappointed if I wouldn't be able to be able to play it myself and get a copy of it. However, it's one of those games where I really like it. I like the concept of like the kind of sort of guesswork, trying to fish for clues. I like the concept of trying to pay for your breaking through the like barriers and stuff like that. It's really cool. I would definitely say if someone's got it, play it because you have to experience it. Like I'm glad I did. However, I would be a fool not to suggest that you will be disappointed in the fact that you will not be able to purchase it for sort of cost price.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's going to be a very expensive venture to go out and actually purchase a copy of this for yourself at this point. If you have a friend that has it, by all means, they're probably crying out for someone to play with right now, and to I'm sure they'll be open to lending you cards so you can make a deck to be able to play against them. You know, I think they'll 100% be in that sort of situation. We will get back around to this point later as well, but we actually discussed this at the end of our play session as well. Fantasy Flight have actually put a lot of the systems that we used in Netrunner into a lot of their other living card games, we did notice. But we've got a card game to talk about a bit later that will carry on that point then. So perhaps we should move on at this point. And again, we'll take another short break from living card games and talk about Azul, which we played towards the end of our little gaming session that we had. I've talked about Azul on this podcast before. It's a neat little spatial puzzle where you have basically these well, in a two-player game, you have 5 mats, which all have 4 coloured tiles on. The idea is you have a little grid in front of you that has a pattern of coloured tiles on it. And next to those lines, you have a queue. You can only put one type of colour in each queue. So your top one, for example, only has one tile, one queue tile space on it. Then the next one down has 2, next one down has 3, then 4, then at maximum 5. The idea is on these 5 mats with 4 tiles on your turn, you will get to choose to take every single tile of one colour off of one of those mats and then move all of the rest that you didn't take into the centre of the 5 mats, which are kind of arranged in a circle. You can take from the centre, so over the course of the round, the centre is getting more and more populated as people are taking more and more from the mats making up the circle. And also you are slowly filling up, so there's less spaces for you to actually put your coloured tiles into. If, say, you only have space in your one spot queue at the top, and let's say for argument's sake, you've already completed the red tile on a previous turn. So in other words, on the pattern side of your player board, the red tile is currently taken up on there. Means you cannot take a red tile and put it into your 1 tile queue, which may limit you. It may mean that out of the 2 things that are left on the board, where you have 1 red tile and 4 blue tiles, you have to take those blue tiles. And the problem with that is that one of those 4 blue tiles is going to go into your 1 space queue at the top of your board, and the other 3 are going to go into a smash tile pile, which are going to give you minus points for the round. You're essentially trying to end the game by completing 1 horizontal row of coloured tiles. You can complete as many vertical lines as you want. You get bonus points for all of them. You also get extra bonus points if you filled every single colour tile on your little pattern on your board as well. And yeah, you're scoring points after every single round once all the tiles are taken as well. So it's just a really neat little spatial puzzle. Like I said, I have explained all this before, but you've played this for the first time, Darryl. So again, interested to hear your
Popping that
thoughts on
cherry.
this. Yes.
I really liked it. It was basically again, we sort of had this one going just before dinner, didn't we? And
Hmm.
we found that it was a really good little game just to pick her up. It was nice trying to match the tiles. It was a little bit of devious sort of scheming, I guess you could say, where we were kind of actively taking tiles that would not necessarily benefit us, but would screw over the other person. I like that. I like the fact that there was a few bits where um, we had to take a minus, like you say, for getting the extra, like say blue tiles, for instance, and you had left very little choice that I'd have to pick those, and it was good. Like I say, it was really quick. It was easy to play. I think we didn't play 2 games, did we? We were going to play a second one.
We only played one game, yeah.
Yeah, it was really good fun. It's just, yeah, I ended the game too soon, didn't I? I didn't realise that I'd
You
scored what I'd scored.
Yeah, so it just got to a point because I'd been leading throughout the majority of the game, and it just got to a point where you were scoring more points than me in each round, but you ended the round. Sorry, you ended the game, so it didn't give you enough time to be able to catch up. If you had extended out the game a bit longer, I would have had to have reacted to that because, like I said, on the previous round, you scored more points than me, so you were closing the gap by that point. So,
Yeah,
in a way, it was in my interest to close out the game, but you did it for me. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, it was kind of hard to judge because it was the first round that you'd scored more points than me in. So you would have only really known that at the end of the round, and I think you just misjudged it a little, I think.
yeah. I think so.
But yeah, like, how easy did you find it? Because I found it quite easy to pick up this game.
Oh, it was really good. Yeah, it was easy. It was one of those things where you just didn't need to you didn't really need to once you figured out like the scoring system and trying to match the tiles and kind of the whole picking from the almost like little plates in a way.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it really good, and again, it was really nice just to put little pieces on a board.
There's something to say about the production of this as well, because the uh, resin tiles you use to make the patterns are like really high quality, really
Mm.
nice pieces. Like it's a really nice tactile game, I would say.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, this again, this is one of those games that's always mentioned in kind of like the top end of modern board gaming. I think it's rightly up there, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
Very
it's
good
good.
game.
I would again say very approachable.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend it. Um, any closing thoughts on it before we move on to our last game?
It's not a living card game.
It is a living card game. We
Oh,
are
oh,
finishing up by talking about Legend of the Five Rings, which isn't out of print. It is just there's not going to be any new material added to this.
yes.
So I would say right now, if by the end of this you think this sounds interesting to you, then it's probably an idea to get started soon on it. Because, like I said, Fantasy Flight have said that they're not going to be producing any new material for it, which means the next step is to stop print altogether. You get a good selection of cards to begin with. It would be nice to be able to make more decks than you can. Essentially, you can make 2 decks out of what you've got to begin with in the core set. So you may want to diversify by buying a couple more sets to allow you to experiment a bit more. But that's besides the point. Let's get into the game itself. This is the first time that both of... Actually, no, it's not the first time. It's the first time we've done this properly. Like,
Give it an actual go.
we played a bit of a game of it before where we didn't really know what we were doing. I think even by the time we stopped playing, we didn't really know what we were doing. But this time, we 100% managed to play a full game of it. in its intended mode as well, which is with you set up a stronghold and 4 provinces, and the idea is that you have to break 3 of your opponent's provinces and then attack their stronghold. Once that's gone, then you win the game. There are a couple of other ways to win and lose the game as well, involving honor, which becomes kind of a currency that you almost bet with over the course of it, which is kind of a neat little mechanic. But the provinces are always the provinces are always face down. They will start providing an ability when they're flipped face up, but the only way to flip them face up is by attacking a province. So again, living card games, you're going to have a deck made up of cards from a core set. It does suggest playing as the crane and the lion to start off with. So you've got neutral cards that you smash in with the cards from the various clan sets. So like say you take all the crane cards for one, you take all the lion cards for another, add in some neutral cards, and there's your deck. So this game has similar elements to Netrunner in it. One of the things we discussed after we played Netrunner is this whole idea of fishing for information that we discussed before on Netrunner kind of happens in Legend of the Five Rings as well. There may be times you've got 2 different types of attacks that you can declare. So there's this whole phase, like there are a number of phases. Your first phase is you fill up your provinces with face down cards, you flip them over, and then you can, any characters that appear in a province, you can put forward into kind of like your active play area. They're going to cost you a certain amount of fate, and you can put extra fate on there as well, which ensures that your characters are going to stay in the battlefield a bit longer. The idea is that at the end of each round, you take 1 fate off a card, and if you can't take a fate off a card, it leaves play. So only at the point where you pay for them to go onto the field, you can kind of bet on that character and keep them in the field that bit longer by putting extra fate on them. So they may be a 4-cost character, but you decide to put 6 fate on them. That way they're going to stay for an extra couple of rounds. Then after this, you kind of go through a betting phase where you have this dial and you choose a number between 1 and 5 each. This is you betting your honor against your opponent because you've got a deck of scheming cards, which is kind of all the devious, underhanded things that you can do over the course of the game. So the idea is these give you more options when it comes to defending or attacking a province. Like you may be able to put more characters into the field, or you may have a special play that allows a character that takes a character out of the battle, or something like that. The idea is that the amount that you're betting is the amount of cards you're going to bring into your hand, but the difference between the two, you have to sacrifice an amount of your honor to your opponent if you bid higher than them. So if I bid 5 and Darryl bid 1, I would have to give Darryl 4 of my honor. This is important because if someone gets 25 honor over the course of a game, they automatically win the game. If someone is reduced to 0 honor, they automatically lose the game. So after this, you declare character. The first player declares a character and attacks a province. This doesn't necessarily have to be with the purpose of breaking that province. You might just be fishing for information. So you might just be kind of looking for information on them. And with that, we have lost Darryl for good. Okay, so I'm going to finish up here, just me on my own. So yeah, it would have been nice to have gotten a couple of Darryl's thoughts here, but we can't. So the idea is that you attack a province, you select a character, and then the defender gets to declare who's defending against them. So you can only use the characters that you originally brought in from your provinces before. Then, once you've decided all that, if the province, by the way, was flipped face down, it then gets flipped up. So abilities get resolved and stuff like that. Like maybe we'll give you the defender extra abilities in battle and stuff. Then the idea is you have your battle. It can be one of 2 different types as well. You've got a military attack or you have a political attack, and every character will have different values depending on basically what kind of character they are, really. This is when you can play your scheme cards then. They're going to adjust the figures of everything over the course of the battle. So they may do things like assassinate a character on another side for the cost of honor or something like that. So you might lose 3 honor, but you get to wipe one of the opponent's characters off the battlefield altogether. Not to go back home, but to go into their discard pile. They've been killed and they are out of it at this point. So you may be able to put attachments on characters that you might equip a fan which magically boosts their political power, or something like that. And then the idea is you'll have settled on numbers at the end. One player is going to win, and they are going to you're going to determine how much they've won by. How much they've won by determines whether they break the province or not. So if a province has a health of 5, the attacker has to win by at least 5 in order to break that province. And when they do, it gets turned upside down. That represents a province being broken. Once you've broken 3, you can attack the stronghold, which is a little bit stronger than the other provinces. Once that's broken, you've got a winner of your game. Like I said, it's an interesting game because you do have those aspects of being kind of like poking at stuff as well. But you also have this whole element of you have the 5 rings as well. So when you declare what kind of attack you're doing on which province, you kind of say, I'm going to make a political fire attack against this one. So you take the fire ring and you put it on its political side, with its political side staring face up. Whoever wins that combat gets to take that ring. If it's defender, great. They've won. That basically shows they've got a ring. That will kind of like help them with imperial favor at the end of it. Whereas if the attacker wins, they actually get a bonus ability as well. So each ring will do a different thing, which will usually involve doing things like I can remember the water one. If you win as an attacker with the water ring, you get to unbow one of your people when they go back home, because after every battle they bow, which means you turn them horizontally to show that they've done their thing for this round. They can't be used to defend when the other player gets their choice of attack and stuff. I really enjoyed Legend of the Five Rings. It's something that I really want to try and get into a bit more. Really want to play it out and try some of the other clans. I know Darryl was looking at the Crab clan, who are kind of a bit of a bulky, kind of tough to beat kind of clan, whereas I quite like the idea of being the Scorpion, who are very underhanded. Who I think you have to, like, I imagine balancing honor is going to be quite hard with the Scorpion, because they very much rely on taking those scheme cards and doing a lot of underhanded stuff. Yeah, it's like I say, there's a lot of options here for making your own clan up and stuff like that. Like, there's something like 7 different clans to be able to choose from, so that all play very differently. This one, we were finding that the Lion, who I was playing as, were very much like a sledgehammer. They just have loads of things that they can build all their stats on and just absolutely smash their opponent, mostly on the military side of things. Whereas the Crane had a lot of abilities to dishonor their opponents, was the main trouble I was having with Darryl's Crane clan. It was very bothersome, basically. So a lot of the time I would plan something and they would more often than not dishonor my characters, which would not just reduce their abilities in battle, but also meant when they left the field, I would start losing honor tokens as well. So that was really hard to be able to deal with. So the clans all play very differently from what we were doing, which means there's a lot of replay value to this game. Both me and Darryl enjoyed this one a lot. Very, very good game. We're kind of looking forward to getting back to the table and playing it again. I think I can speak for him on that part, I think. But yeah, it's like I say, it borrows some stuff from Netrunner, which is nothing but a good thing, really. We have no spiritual successor to Netrunner these days, so having something at least similar to that, we still haven't got that asymmetrical game or anything like that, but this has been generally a good experience this time with Legend of the Five Rings. We've got Under Fu Lane Shadow, which kind of changes the game into a cooperative game, which you can either play one against all or play everyone against an AI opponent. We're kind of wanting to give that a try at some point in the near future as well. And there's lots of other different game modes if you get the Clan War expansion. I think the Children of the Empire one, which was the other deluxe expansion for it, kind of just opens up more card options. So if what you're looking for is lots of cards to be able to add to your decks, that's probably the one to go for. But the ones which open up extra play kind of are the ones which interest me the most right now. Yeah, so it comes with a real recommend from me, and I'm looking forward to trying some more Legend of the Five Rings out. I've kind of run out of steam here, not having anyone to bounce off of, so I'm probably going to call it right here for this podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. If you can, please visit facebook.com/everybodydice. We tend to announce a lot of our stuff on there. We also have a Twitter page, Everybody Dice. We don't really use the Instagram too much anymore, but if you do want to look at that, it's at Everybody Dice Show. And apart from that, there should be some stuff on screen right now. If you could click them and support us by watching some more of our videos, that would be great. Please do give this a like, share, and a subscribe as well. Apart from that, thank you very much for joining us on this podcast, and we'll see you next time. Till then, bye!